I welcome you in the course called Technology Transfer through Strategic Alliance and Joint Venture. This course is divided into a 4 module. The first module is how to transfer technology through strategic alliance and joint venture, and within this module I am basically discuss more of strategic alliance issues. The second module is on joint venture, and I am going to talk on what are the joint venture options, types of the joint venture, and what are the key compliance requirement in case of the joint venture. In the third module, I will take you through the joint venture agreement, and I will detail out the various aspect of the joint venture, offset requirement, due diligence, reason for failure of the joint venture, so much so forth. And in the last module, I am going to talk with you relating to the special purpose vehicle, which might be the outcome of a joint venture or which is basically known as a formal setup. So, today my talks will be concentrated more on the strategic alliance, and to be more specific, I will speak on form of strategic alliance. Now, before I go to this strategic alliance and the technology transfer through the strategic alliance, let me try to impress on you that why we need to have a strategic alliance for technology transfer, or why people are giving more emphasis now to transfer the technology through strategic alliance. Now, possibly all of you are aware of the fact that Government of India initiated the program called Make in India, and if you want to make this particular program successful, then we need to have a cutting edge technology which has been developed in the different part of the world, because the product which we generate not only will be used in the domestic market, but it will also be exported to the international market. And if it is not of a market standard or market benchmarking, then possibly the product will not get the value into the market. So, developing the technology through R&D is a time taking, cost intensive, and risk oriented. Many of the time you might started a R&D program to develop a particular technology, and at the end of the day you will find that you could not find a desired result out of that particular R&D. So, if you wanted to absorb the technology in a quicker sense, then the technology transfer is one of the easiest means to do that. Now, previously the technology transfer used to be done through the process of licensing or given some kind of permission of manufacturing under that particular licensing. But over the years it is understood that licensing has a lot of limitation. Mainly whenever you are transferring that particular technology, it is sometimes difficult for the host company who is receiving that particular technology could not absorb that particular technology within their own system. The reason might be the know-how which should be transferred to the host company or the firm is not been transferred by the firm or the company who is basically transferring that particular technology, or it might so happen that the local conditions are such that that particular technology could not be absorbed within the organization. So, because of that, most of the time even the technology has been transferred, the company who are basically receiving that particular technology could not develop that particular technology or could not produce the product, desirable product which should come out of this particular technology. The second important thing is that sometimes you need to customize the technology according to the local market need, and customization of the technology is become order of the day in many market. Let me take the example of automobile sector. You will find the car which is manufactured in India having a separate specification of the car which has been manufactured in the Europe by the same company. So, what is important here that you might be using the same technology, but technology is need to be customized because of the local regulatory need, because of the local cultural need, because of local market need. Because if you are using the same model, same technology, it might not even be people might not even like to buy or take that particular product into the local market itself. So, technology licensing, which used to be quite a acceptable standard for transferring the technology from one boundary to another boundary or from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, are no more found to be a very suitable process of transferring the technology. So, you will find people are more and more moving towards the concept of strategic alliance, which gives a more flexibility into the transferring the technology. It is also giving a better protection to the transfer of the technology which has been given to the host company. It is also helping the host company to absorb the technology over the time. It is also helping the host company who are taking this particular technology to develop that particular technology further in the futures, and to share that particular future development with the future development of the technology to the original company who has basically transferred that particular technology. So, strategic alliance became more and more important for transferring of the technology. Now, let me take you through the different forms of a strategic alliance, and before that let me try to talk with you relating to what do you mean by this particular strategic alliance. Now, if you look into the set understanding of the strategic alliance, it says that any agreement between two or more parties to collaborate with each other to achieve the certain objective. That means, whenever we are talking about the strategic alliance, it is a very flexible type of agreement between the two parties who are having a common objective to achieve. Now, when we are using the term agreements here, it has a wider understanding than what we understand simply agreement under the legal perspective. The agreement under the law means which can be enforceable by the law, but when we are talking about agreement here, it can be even memorandum of understanding. Now, let me try to draw your attention in the type of things which people do under this strategic alliance. Sometimes you will find people are entering into a memorandum of association, sometimes people are entering into memorandum of understanding, sometimes people are entering into some kind of a partnership, sometimes people are entering into some kind of a joint venture, and people even can go up to the merger and acquisition under this strategic alliance. So, when you talk about the strategic alliance, there is a no as such specific form is there relating to the strategic alliance. Strategic alliance can be hard agreement form or hard contract form, or it can be a simply a very loose relation between these two parties. So, when you are using this particular strategic alliance, it gives a flexibility to both the parties in that particular agreement to customize their requirement as per the market need, to customize their requirement as per the capital which is available, or regulatory need of that particular country where they wanted to form this particular strategic alliance. Now, strategic alliance through the technology transfer through the strategic alliance certain have certain features, certain uh, uh, certain features you get out of this particular process. Like in case of the technology transfer through strategic alliance, is its cost of acquisition of the technology is low in compared to licensing of technology, because you are basically giving kind of equal opportunity to the person who is transferring the technology to participate into the profit making, or even to accessing the market, or even to helping that particular partners who has transferred that particular technology to have understanding about the market where you are wanted to do this particular business. So, many of the time you will find that if you are transferring the technology through the strategic alliance is cheaper than if you are transferring the technology through the process of licensing. Now, let me try to give some example to this particular strategic alliance technology transfer through the strategic alliance. So, you can understand this particular process. Like in India, you will find that there is a many company who has come together to form a strategic alliance initially, and then convert that particular strategic alliance in joint venture, and later on created a special purpose vehicle to execute that particular strategic alliance. Take for example, Hero Honda. Basically, Hero has received the technology of the bike from the Honda, and then they have manufactured the bike for I think a substantial period of time. It is more than a decades, and after that they have parted with each other. Now, what happened in this particular process? Hero Honda joint venture became a largest producer of the bike in India. In fact, to put it in another way around, they have actually changed the pattern of the vehicle, mechanical vehicle in India, and previously people was not so fond of using the bike, but today we found that people are quite fond of using this particular bike, and the credit goes to Hero Honda. Hero is actually absorbed the technology, and you will find after a certain period of time Hero is parted from the Honda itself, and Hero is started doing its own R&D, and today Hero claims that they are the one of the most or they are the largest manufacturing of the bike in India. Whereas, in case of the Honda, it was quite benefiting, because Honda was a foreign company and they were not aware about the Indian market. So, they could understand the Indian customer or Indian market properly, and they could understand that how they can customize the technology for the Indian market itself. So, it was basically a win-win scenario situation for both this particular party who has entered into a strategic alliance initially into this particular process. So, you will find that there is a several examples of that. Even you will find the partnership of Maruti and Suzuki. Though the Suzuki is holding company of the Maruti, but you will find Maruti today is became one of the important company in terms of technological development and to customization of the product or bringing the new product into the market. You will also aware of this particular fact, this Maruti is now manufacturing many of the Suzuki specifications, or they are developing their own product and they are exporting that particular product to the international market after satisfying the demand in the domestic market. So, this there is a several example you will find all across, not only in automobile sector, because I gave the example only from automobile sector. You will find this example in pharmaceutical. You will find this particular example in other sector also, wherein technology has been transferred, technology has been absorbed, and then people has build up the R&D on that particular technology, and they have created the new product out of that particular build up. And maybe we found both the partner started doing the business independently into the same market itself. Second thing is that if you obtain such technology through strategic alliance, then you generally forego the R&D, and the R&D cost is a huge cost for where the product is a R&D intensive product. Like in case of the pharmaceutical, if you wanted to bring some molecule, then you need to have a long time investment as well as a capital investment. At the same time, you are not sure that at the end of the day, the research which you have commissioned will going to yield with benefit result. So, at the end of the day, you might find that you will not going to get a desired result. So, it is not possible for a small firm or a startup many of the time to invest a lot in case of the R&D. So, it is better that if they import the technology or they get the technology through the strategic alliance, they can build up that particular thing in a particular market itself. Now, let me give you example of defense sector, what happening in today's context. You will find India until now heavily relied on the defense equipment from its outside partner. Sometimes it is from Russia, sometimes you will find it is from United States, sometimes you will find it is from Italy, so much so forth. But today the present government wanted to manufacture the defense equipment in the country itself. Even though we have a very old organization which used to supply all the defense requirement known as OFB, there is a Ordnance Factory Board. They actually used to supply all the security agencies whatever the weapons and the equipment they require for the surveillance and the security. But over the years people understood that whatever they are producing, those are not a market standard. So, if you wanted to have a proper security and surveillance mechanism, then you have to have advanced machineries, advanced gun, advanced tank, advanced fighter jet, so much so forth. So, this particular government initiated the concept called offset requirement of manufacturing. That means, government is assured that if you have manufactured some of the equipment in this particular country, then in that case government is going to buy a bulk from this particular manufacturing itself. So, in this particular process, government invited domestic business houses to manufacture and participate into these defense equipment. When the government has invited them, it was difficult for this domestic producer to immediately start the R&D to produce this particular equipment, because if they start doing the R&D today, they might get the result maybe another 20 or 30 years of time, and then possibly they are going to manufacture the product. But what they started doing, they started contracting the best manufacturing in the different part of the world, and they started importing the technology from them to Indian soil, so that they can manufacture some kind of advanced equipment which can not only be used in domestic market, but which even can be exported in other market. Like yesterday, I saw a news in Economic Times, wherein we found that F-16, which is one of the known fighter plane in the world and is manufactured by some US company, they are interested to manufacture in India, and they have found a suitable partner in India too. Now, while the CEO of this company given the interview, he has mentioned that they have chosen the India because the cost of production of this particular fighter jet will be much cheaper than what they produce in America, because India do have uh, um, um, technical manpower, they do have the raw material and resources plenty available in the country, and it will be help them to to produce the product which can be sold into the developing market, or even to other market which are not developed. So, they are thinking about the cost cutting in production of this particular fighter jet. So, if you can bring down this expenditure relating to R&D, then in that case you can bring the product which is much competitive in price in compared to other country, where the cost of product is very high because of the labor or some other conditions. The last one is that if you are having if you are transferring the technology through strategic alliance, then you can even have a control over that particular technology itself, which I was mentioning before as absorption over the technology. I was talking with some of the PSUs, public sector undertaking, and they were narrating their story of technology absorptions from the Russia. They told me that they have basically get the license of couple of product, and there was a huge documentation of those particular licensing. But at the end of the day, when these years of collaboration has got over, then these people who has transferred the technology, they actually withdraw their manpower from the factory or the establishment where they used to manufacturing that particular product. And when they ask them to train the local manpower, so that they can keep on producing those particular equipment which was under those licensing agreement, and they actually denied to do that particular thing. So, what I am trying to drawing your attention, maybe the technology has been transferred by this licensing, but they never transfer the know-how or how to manufacture or develop that particular product in India or in this particular country. So, even if you have spent a lot of money, paid a lot of royalty because of this particular licensing, but at the end of the day you could not absorb that particular technology, because the crucial information which is required for production of that particular product under that particular technology is not been transferred to you. So, if you are transferring the technology through the SA or strategic alliance, you have a better control over that particular thing, because what you do at that particular point of time, you also try to train the local manpower who can participate in manufacturing process. Even when this particular period got over, they are sufficiently trained how to manufacture this particular thing, or even you can start the R&D on whatever has been transferred to you through this strategic alliance. So, that tomorrow if your partner is say goodbye to you, you are sufficient strength to develop your own technology or develop your own product into this particular market. So, strategic alliance give a better edge to absorb the technology in within the organization. Now, the question is what are the forms which might be there in case of the strategic alliance. There can be a spectrum of forms which can be used for strategic alliance. As I have told in the beginning, it can be simply understanding to as formal setup as a merger and acquisition. So, strategic alliance may be like in the form of MOU, memorandum of understanding. It can be a memorandum of associations also. It can be a partnership. It can be a joint venture, and you can even acquire a company, or you can even merge with a particular company. So, there is a wide range of a form of business is possible. Let me try to keep a bit of understanding about all this particular form. Now, when we are talking about a memorandum of association, we try to mean that it is a kind of a loose agreement between or memorandum of understanding. It is a kind of a loose agreement between the two organizations relating to sharing of profit, relating to sharing of the technology, and there might be kind of understanding that the person who is receiving the technology, he or that particular organization is going to give adequate protection into the market where they are going to develop the product and sell the product. Whereas, when we are talking about the partnership, there might be a little more liability on the both the part. It might range from the tax liability to even the product liability too. So, even the third person can come tomorrow and sue both these particular organizations who are participated into this particular partnership. So, partnership is a bit of a formal setup or formal organization than that of a memorandum of understanding or memorandum of association. Then, if you talk about the joint venture, then in that case is basically a formation of a company as a result of the joint venture. So, you will find that you might incorporate a special purpose vehicle at the result of that particular strategic alliance which has gone up to the joint venture. And if you are going to go for acquisition, it might so happen that the foreign company who is transferring the technology, they come and make an equity investment into the company where they are transferring this particular technology, or even sometimes it can be a joint venture. That means some subsidiary of the foreign company who is basically transferring the technology get merged with the company who is receiving this particular technology. So, by this particular process, they can have kind of the control over this particular management where they are transferring this particular technology. At the same time, the company who is basically receiving the technology, they have better grip over the technology which they are receiving out of this particular process. So, this is all about the forms of strategic alliance. We are going to take you in the next part about how we can go for a negotiation and what are the contractual aspect one need to understand when they will go for strategic alliance. Thank you.